Okay.
We're
Okay. I
live.
think we're live. Listen, we've been acting up back here. We thought we were live a second ago, but it wasn't working. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Our Four Cents.
3 cents today. We
3 cents
down.
today.
Our, our other sisterhood in the finance community, Malika, is not with us today, but she will be back next month.
Yes.
She is somewhere globetrotting.
Yes. And
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show today. As my other two co-hosts has already mentioned, we are 3 cents, and it is another episode where we are back talking about the topics that impact the financial lives of Black women. As you see, we are four Black women sharing our thoughts, sharing our experiences, and hopefully sharing something that makes a difference in your financial life. That's something that gets you to thinking differently, acting differently, or just being able to have a new perspective on your money and your financial life. So, tonight we are going to be talking about a topic that could be somewhat sensitive, but to us, because of how we sometimes perceive the word mistakes. And I hope you can see in the title there, we're going to be talking today about our financial mistakes, our worst financial mistakes, the worst financial mistakes that we have ever made with money. So before we get into the topic, I want you to also be thinking about what is your worst money mistake? And also be thinking about what were some of the lessons that you were able to draw from it and how you actually resolve that mistake and turn it into a lesson for your life. Excuse me. So before we get into that, we're going to introduce ourselves as we always do, just in case we have someone new in the audience joining us. My name is Emily Macklin. I am a financial coach and I help six-figure earners stop living paycheck to paycheck. I help them create strategies to escape the paycheck to paycheck lifestyle and start getting the most of their six-figure salaries. You can see here on the screen my little link if you want to connect, or if you just got some questions, want to check out what I do and how I do it. You can see my link there on the screen. So I'm going to pass it to Coach B for her to introduce herself and tell us who she is.
Hey, Emily. I am Coach B. I am an ADHD money coach. I help audacious, gifted Black women with ADHD manage their money. I found that the way that neurotypical people manage money, that advice works great for them, but it doesn't always work well for us. And we need something different. And I provide those resources to my community. I call us the baddies, Black women adding value in every situation. Okay. You can follow me at Young Rich Rooted everywhere. Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn. I don't know if I mentioned all the platforms, but I'm Young Rich Rooted everywhere. And I'm gonna pass this to Shianti.
Hello. My name is Chiante Jones, and I too am surprise a money coach, financial coach. And the name of my company is Dollars and Change, and I support women and teach women how to more confidently manage their day-to-day finances with their money management, so that they can create more financial flexibility in their lives and build that solid foundation for wealth. So, teaching you how to have more fun and fulfillment with the money that you're making. So you've learned how to make this money, you have it coming in, everything's getting paid, but you really want to thrive and you want to go beyond just the day to day to really build that foundation to do more with your money, right? To have more fun and fulfillment. And so that's how I do that with one-on-one coaching. And you can find me at dollarsandchange.com. That's my central hub for all things financial coaching. So you can also find my social links and everything on there. And so, yeah, here we are and talking about our worst mistakes ever. This should be good, y'all. This is be good to share. And here's the thing: we have not told each other what we're going to share because we just want to be able to like ask questions and get more information from each other and just have a real conversation about it. So we'll be hearing for the first time, just like you'll be hearing for the first time. So yeah.
Yes, this is organic conversation, and we want to hear your feedback as well, not just the feedback from our mistakes, but your mistakes as well. There's so many life lessons that stand to be gained in this conversation from the mistakes that we've made and the mistakes that you've made, the lessons you've learned, and the advice that you have for your younger self. If you could tell her what to do this go round. So
Yeah,
I'm excited.
Yeah. All right. So who wants to kick us off with sharing their worst money mistake? Any volunteers?
I'll go first.
Okay. All right. We have a brave soul. All right. Coach B, share with us, what would you consider to be like one of your worst money mistakes?
My worst financial mistake was sharing finances in a relationship when I didn't quite know or love myself, because it put me in a position to be codependent. And in this case, I was often the breadwinner. There's a lot of social norms that are different in that environment, and a lot of like inner work that I was battling, this feeling of emasculating someone else, this feeling of, and I think in our culture, especially in the Black community, I feel like women often get hit with this kind of like, if you weren't with me when I was here, you know what I mean? So we feel like we have to earn our place is to be a part of that struggle, as opposed to seeking someone who is financially capable of being in a relationship. I don't think I had this understanding how important financial stability was in the health of a relationship. And I thought it was something that I should contribute to building this person up, as opposed to, allowing that person the space and time to grow and develop on their own, so that when we came together, we could do something together. But not having, my own sense of self-love and self-awareness caused me to make a string of bad mistakes. And I just have to sum it up into just like that lack of self-love I had as a young girl dating, young and dumb.
Yeah. Well, and Jessica in the comments, she was saying, amen, I made the same mistake. You're telling my story, right? And I think a lot of women can have found themselves in that situation, where they have, like you said, trying to kind of protect feelings and all that kind of stuff, and just taking the lead on the finances as far as like being the breadwinner, and really kind of getting out of alignment of the position that you want to be with when you're like letting somebody else to be grow up themselves, figure out themselves, get stable themselves, and not feeling like we have to do that for somebody else. Be like, so you were saying like a lot of it you felt was kind of like where you were personally, like kind of your own self-work and self-worth and everything like that was kind of what led you there. Like looking back now, what lessons do you have in like hindsight that you think led you there?
I mean, at the time, I think I only recently realized that all of that was that I didn't really love myself. What I felt like in the moment was that I was being financially abused and taken for granted. And I think I felt like I had this expectation that if you show up for a person in one way automatically, I think I had a very naive sense of people's capacity. So on one end, there are people who don't show up the way they're supposed to because they don't want to, right? They can fully take advantage of a good situation. Like, why do more when I can get all of this for less, right? And then there's some people who simply don't have the capacity. And there's a part of me that did not have this self-awareness that, of people's limitations, of where they are at this stage in their life. And it was my responsibility to establish a boundary. That was my responsibility, to recognize what someone could and could not do, and not to continue to extend access to something that they could not manage. And it constantly kept putting me in a situation where I was overextended financially. I was doing a lot. And then I was young and very capable of being gaslit, right? So, you know, I'm feeling like, well, maybe if I just do more. I'm like, maybe if I just do more. This is real life here.
Real life, y'all.
If I show up more, you know, you just keep feeling like the more you do, eventually it'll be repaid. And the problem is like there gets to a point where you're so invested, you almost feel like you can't cut it. You can do all of this for nothing. So you keep pouring into it. And I think we find ourselves overly invested in a lot of things in life. And this is just one area where we don't know when to walk away. And we think that we're going to get a return on this investment, and it never really pans out that way. And we have to learn when to step away from a situation. We have to learn to cut our losses and not allow damage to continuously be done because we feel like I don't want to have wasted my time or my money or my energy and my effort.
Or just being overly loyal, right? It's like being like overly empathetic to somebody's situation, right? Like overly loyal to somebody.
And that's where the codependency came in, was this feeling of like, well, if I don't do it, what will happen to them? That's hurt for people. And it doesn't just happen in romantic relationships. You see it, and I could see it in my life where it happened in all kinds of relationships. You just feel this need to help others, and you feel like, well, if I don't show up for them, what will happen? And I was constantly putting myself in a bad situation financially to help others. And I wasn't communicating what my own situation was. So, you know, they didn't always know when they were burdening me at the time. Right. So it just took time for me to understand that communicating a limitation, communicating a boundary, that those are acts of self-love, but they're also an act of love for the relationship. Because if that person doesn't, does something that puts me in a bad position financially, it could damage the relationship. So establishing those boundaries is actually protection for that relationship. And I didn't have that clarity, as a 20-something, and it caused a lot of hardship that I don't pay for today.
Yeah, I did. One thing that you said was interesting to me. Is that like rather than it being in hindsight, you said as this was happening, you felt like it was like financial abuse was happening. Like there was like a level of awareness, like that something is not right here. This is not how it's supposed to be.
You have this like part. I also heard what is it, Amanda Seals? I'm forgetting her name wrong. And she was talking about her relationship, and she was saying, a lot of smart women are, she said, smart woman, dumb girl syndrome, right? Like you are book smart, like you're smart in so many ways, but when it comes to matters of the heart, there's a lot to be fumbled. And in that moment, I'm having this intellectual, like I'm doing the math on paper. I'm intelligent. I'm able to put things together. Like if I was outside of myself giving advice to someone else, I could see how something about this doesn't feel right. But then the person is dealing with another person, right? And you can be gaslit into feeling like what you're seeing isn't really happening. And you're constantly at war with your mind and your heart. Like, is this, I feel like this is wrong, but this person's making me feel like I'm crazy. That this is not normal, and you're in real time in constant war with common sense and another person's perspective, and you're trying to be fair to their perspective. You're trying to be balanced in real time, and it can be very confusing to kind of navigate. So I think in real time it felt like this is wrong, but I also didn't know how to, even when I was confident that it was wrong, I didn't know how to navigate it. And this is the part about being young and not knowing how to speak up for, not just not knowing how to speak up for yourself. I think when you have been through any form of trauma, it makes it a lot harder. That I wasn't always the type of person who would allow anybody to run roughshod over me. If you knew me growing up, I got something to say. So for me to become the type of person who could have someone put so much fear inside of you that you hesitate to say your truths because you just don't want to deal with the anxiety or the stress or the drama or the fight. And so you just go, I'll just deal with it. And you just take on that financial hardship as opposed to just dealing with the issue straight up. And not only that, without not telling other people. So even when I couldn't,
I was gonna mention that, like, it was like, and then it's kind of like a secret too, because like you're going through it, but then a lot of times you feel isolated and alone because there's embarrassment, there's shame, there, other feelings that go along with it that you don't want everybody else to know, right?
That's going to be my question.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say that was going to be kind of along the lines of my question. We oftentimes are in situations like that, especially when it's a partner or someone who we've committed to give our best to, that, to us, we're just, being a good woman, right? We're being a good woman. We're being a good partner. But in the moment where you do realize, wait, maybe this is, or the moment that where you would classify that you realize there's a mistake, there's oftentimes these emotional feelings that come with realizing that, what, I've given too much of myself in this relationship, or I've been taken advantage of. So how did you work through those emotions that come along with realizing that maybe you've allowed yourself to make this mistake? That weren't your intentions, and it may not even felt like a mistake. But I know with relationships, over time, things start to happen. And when you get new information, or when you reflect, or in hindsight, you realize this was a mistake. So how did you really, once you kind of processed it, I messed up, how'd you overcome those emotions of realizing you messed up?
As I'm sitting here, I'm thinking to myself, I haven't fully overcome them. Because I just stuck myself on like the emotional roller coaster in this moment. And it still feels so raw, so much of it.
Yeah.
There was a point where the response was just to shut down, where I was just overwhelmed and I could not do anything. I couldn't talk to my friends or family about it. For the same reason you guys say, there's a version of you that they know and it's true. And to acknowledge that you've been in this abusive relationship is heavy, because first of all, you realize they're going to want to come to your defense, and people often feel like they fail you if they missed it. And you don't want to put that weight on someone else. And then there is, the feeling of shame, because how can I find myself in a situation I know better? Of all people, I know better. And then there is, well, I'm in this and it's overwhelming to figure out how to get out of it when you don't quite, everything is so heavy that it's hard to think through that. So I think the initial response was just kind of shutting down. I think after that was, there was this period of like fight, they have that fight or flight, where you do get to a point where your back is up against the wall and you have no choice but to fight back for what it is that you need. And I think my daughter was always the big advocate, the big catalyst for me, was knowing that I had to be the example of what to do and what not to do. And how could I demonstrate that if she didn't watch her mother make the right choices? And so no matter how hard it was, I had to give her, because she might one day be in a position where she doesn't know how to navigate something like this. But if she watched her mom, make stronger choices, there was a better chance that she wouldn't find herself in that situation either. So I think attaching my fight to a why that was bigger than me was a huge part in me getting the courage I need to figure it out. Because even when I knew that I needed to get out of the situation, I still didn't know how to get out of the situation, because the situation was the money stuff I could figure out. That's math. I knew finances, right? The emotional stuff I didn't know how to navigate.
Yeah.
Emotions connected to the decisions we made with finances, the emotions connected to asking for help, the emotions the emotions connected to sharing your story. There's so many feelings that you're dealing with in real time, and we're not given any skills on how to deal with our emotions our whole life. In childhood, in school, we're learning about academics, but we're not learning about how to navigate big feelings. And so then we just kind of trial and error that as an adult, not fully understanding how those emotions are going to affect our finances. So while, for a lot of my life, I thought finances was just a math problem, a discipline problem, a consistency problem, and I didn't have those problems. So I was good with money. I did not realize that so much of it is a head and a heart problem.
Yeah.
And that would be the demise of my finance. Anytime I had a major hardship in finances, it was always connected to my head and my heart.
Yeah. Yeah. I do think that a lot of people will resonate with. Thank you for sharing, Coach B. Thank you for sharing, because I'm sure there's a lot of, first, I identify with parts of your story, right? I mean, I wouldn't say I was financially abusive situation at all, but I can identify with looking back on some things and like, I should have said some better, like I should have said something, or I should have had better boundaries around that. And I think we can look back a lot of times in relationships, in some relationships, and see kind of where that was. But I do think there's this sense of, you mentioned like I should have known better, or how did I get here? And I think that a lot of times we do end up like kind of beating ourselves up, especially in situations like this. Like, how could I end up here? And how could I have made this mistake, or whatever it is. And I think as Black women in particular, like we feel like we always have to be strong and like don't want nobody got to get one over on me, right? Like we got it all, like we have to have it all figured out all the time. And like, y'all, we are just human trying to figure something out. It's okay if you didn't know it's the first time you navigated anything like that before. There's other emotions and experiences that were contributing to that as well. And that's something I just want to mention in general about making mistakes, is like, you were doing the best that you could at that time with what you knew. And like, so like there's a level of like forgiving yourself for what you didn't know, right? Or what skills you didn't have, or what awareness you didn't have at that time. You was doing the best that you could. And so that's just general mistakes.
That's such a good point, because I feel like that's the stage that I'm in now, is the forgiveness.
Yeah, and it could take a little time, to get there for ourselves.
Yeah, when you see yourself in all the ways that you betrayed yourself, especially when you thought that you really did love yourself, like you're like, oh,
like, what happened? Yeah, like, what happened here? How did this happen? But like, it does run deep, right? It's way beyond just numbers, and it's something else to think about when you're like in a relationship dynamic as well. That there's a lot of things at play there. Money is just one aspect of it, but like whoever in a situation like that, you also have to realize like you're being manipulated in a lot of ways, right? You're being manipulated, and that's so like to not blame yourself for someone who's being cunningly manipulating you, right? They know that they're pressing certain buttons and doing things very intentionally, and playing on your feelings and all that kind of stuff, right? And yeah, and taking advantage of that.
I think the downside of having this awareness of like what drives people, or what would make a person do something, that worked against me in some ways, right? Because I had this awareness that this person grew up in survival mode. And so their default is like a selfish kind of, let me make sure I'm okay, right?
Yeah.
And you understand when somebody is responding from survival mode and like their own trauma that has nothing to do with you. And so you're trying to have grace for that. I grew up, I feel like I grew up in love. One thing I could say about my family was like, we'll figure it out. Like, we're not going to miss no meals. We never, we were just going to work it through together. And so we're bringing in two different dynamics, like you said, and we're thinking about more than just this other person and what they're bringing to that table. But realizing that was never my responsibility to counsel that, right? That was something that person needed to do with their counselor to work through and realize on their own. But I was busy trying to inject myself into it and trying to, I like to say, Captain Save-A-Ho is what I was. Captain Save-A-Ho.
Yeah.
Trying to do God's
Yeah.
work.
Y'all put in the comments if you ever been guilty of being Captain Save-A-Ho. Put that in the comments.
Drop Captain.
Drop Captain in the comments if you ever been guilty of being Captain Save-A-Ho.
Listen, trying to save somebody. It's not your job. That is God's job. That was their mama's job. That's their therapist's job now, but it is not your job. And I was busy trying to save hope and drowning myself.
Guilty.
Guilty.
We got a guilty. We got a guilty in the comments.
Thank you for your honesty.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Thanks for sharing, Coach B. We want to, all right. Coach Emily, do you want to go or you want me to go?
I can go.
Okay.
Thank you so much for sharing it, Coach B. I know that, man, we all have made some mistakes when it comes to the other species, okay? Because just because we human, okay? So I got a couple different things, and I don't even know. Like, the list is so long, guys. Let me just start there. The list is long for me to choose from. I could put them all in a hat and pull out one and talk about it. Some were emotional, some were not emotional, right? And so I think I'm going to go general. One of the two. One of my, I guess, technical money mistakes, I would say, is not utilizing the Roth IRA. I feel like the Roth IRA is one of the greatest wealth building tools available to us in this day and age. And I didn't utilize it. I don't even think I knew about it. You know, when I knew about the 401k, I literally started putting money into a 401k a year after I started working my first corporate job. And then, and the Roth is really new, actually. I don't think the Roth came about until maybe the 90s. I don't know, 80s, 90s. It's fairly new. But I didn't understand, the value of having a Roth IRA to help me grow my money until, of course, here's the thing about a Roth. Here's why I do like it. Why I say it's the greatest wealth building tool is one, it is tax advantage in three different ways. So one, you put your money in after tax. So any money that goes in there, you've already paid tax on it. Number two, you don't pay tax on any earnings that accumulate in it over time. And then you can pull your money out tax free. And the reason why I say that it is so it's so valuable is because taxes is the one thing we don't know what we'll be paying when we 20 years 30 years down the road we retire and we're having to retrieve our um, retirement savings. There was a time where people in the United States were paying 40, 80, 90% tax. Our tax rates are lower right now in this day and age than they'd ever been in history. So who knows? We may go back to that point where taxes. So this is why I do say that it is one of the greatest vehicles. And if you have access to it, to definitely take advantage of it. But there are some restrictions that are related to your income. And I got to a point where my income phased out and I couldn't get the full advantage of it. So I think that's one, only because of the impact, only because of the long-term impact of being able to have money in my 20s that would have been growing for the next 40 years tax-free. I think for impact, that's probably one of my worst. But another one I want to share is that, and it's related to relationships, is that me and my husband early on didn't really have a vision, a long-term vision. So we didn't make money moves that were really taking advantage of our high earning salary. So sometimes when I sit and reflect, I think about a lot of money has just went through my fingers because we didn't have a vision for being financially independent or working towards fire. And I think if somebody had told me about that at 22, man, at 40, 44, almost 44, it'd be a different story.
Coach Emily, like, do you think if somebody told you that at 2022, if somebody told you at age 22 about say the financial independence, retire early, the FIRE movement, that you would have been like, you would have listened, or you'd have been like, oh, that's nice?
No, I'd have listened, and I didn't learn about it until my early 30s, and I was like, it blew my mind that people were
Yeah.
actually leaving corporate jobs and being able to financially independent and not work. Because I tell you why, because at 22, I actually had my head on straight, right? And I had read Robert Kiyosaki's
Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I was got my first corporate job, making my little 40 stacks. I had a very modest upbringing, and so 40,000 was a lot of money, right? And
Yeah.
so I was also in an environment where I had a group of just hungry Black new people in corporate. We all had just graduated from college. And so one of us got a hold of that book, and we all kind of created this environment of we want to build wealth. So at 22, I
Yeah.
bought my first real estate property. I bought it for a family and I lived in it. And then I bought, by the time I was 28, I had 6 properties. And
Oh my
so
goodness. Go Emily.
that kind of leads me to my third mistake.
Oh, okay.
I ain't gonna. I won't share it. I'll let you share yours, and then we got time. We can come back to it. But I really was. I think had I had that information in my 20s, things would be different for me now.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I would have listened. I think I would have. Um, you know, like I said, I had an environment around me of other people who were pursuing things. We all bought property. Like every one of my girlfriends and even friends of us fellas, we all relocated to St. Louis, so we were very close. And because we didn't have family here, we all were new friends, and so one did something, we all did something, and that was kind of the big thing in um in the early 2000s, and we all were just buying up property because it was easy then, I'll be honest, to go get a loan
Mhm.
for something.
Mhm.
um so I think not having a bigger vision as a couple is probably one of my biggest ones, and again, because of the impact and the potential of what we've lost. I'm not discouraged by that because we got the vision now, and
Mhm.
There you go.
we are acting upon it right now, and I don't think I'm too late. I don't think we know we're not out of time, and that's what I want people to walk away from whenever you do think about any of these mistakes. If you're in your 40s, if you're in your 50s, hey, you got time. You just got to make that decision that with what you know now, and keep make taking action based on what you know now.
Yeah. Yeah. And I
I
just
love
wondered, like,
that.
so you mentioned like having the importance of having the people around you. Like you said, you had a group of friends who were kind of like, let's build wealth and let's do
Yeah.
this, and that made a lot of difference, right? You guys were feeding each other, you were seeing each other make moves, and like, so
Yes.
yeah, y'all pay attention to that. Who you surround yourself with, and just being able to have those
Yes.
type of conversations, right? Do you have people
Mhm.
around you where you can talk about money and wealth building, and if not, expand your circle to bring some people in, okay,
That
that where you
that's
can
such
have those conversations.
Yeah.
that is such an important point. I was talking to a client recently, and she was just sharing like she doesn't have anybody in her life who wants to get their finances together, so it's a lot harder for her to stick to her financial goals because she always has these people who are tempting her to out of what she is trying to do. And one of the things I talked to her about was like sometimes you have to be intentional about creating relationships. Creating, if you don't naturally have that circle of friends who
Yeah.
are wanting more for themselves, you need to create a community of your own who have similar goals in mind, because that's what's going to feed you new information. Like this community, this whole show that we're doing is a result of like-minded people, and we are constantly in each other's chats sharing new tips and information and advice because we have we're all financial coaches, we have similar goals. How powerful it is for you to have friendships around your goals, each
Yeah.
of the and as your goals are different, your friend groups might be different. Your goals for real estate look different than your goals for your business, and you need friendships that support it. So I love that from a very early age, which I think is not very common to have. It's I feel I resonated with you, like being young and on top of it. Like I was
Hmm.
like at
Mhm.
18, if I had gotten that now, I'd have been on it. I had a 401k. As soon as I turned 18, I was signing for my
Yeah.
401k. So, but I didn't have a lot of friends in where I lived in Virginia who thought like me. So imagine if I had 8 girlfriends who all, all lived here and we were all thinking about buying houses, man, it would have been completely different. I didn't have that
Yeah.
experience and I was focused already. I can't imagine how much more I would have done if I had other people who were also learning. I didn't have to learn, I didn't have to have all the knowledge myself, who could bring something to the table and we could exchange ideas. So, Emily, I think your environment that you had an opportunity to kind of come from, and I'm curious, maybe the audience can add. I didn't go to a traditional 4-year school, so I'm wondering if part of the reason for your access to and proximity to these high quality friendships was because of cultivating an environment where everyone's here to learn anyway.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah. I don't even remember how or who kind of got the book, but like I said, we were young, hungry after these corporate careers. Like we came
Yeah.
in like ready to climb. Not only just ready to climb the corporate, but ready to climb in our salaries, ready to just build. Like it was, and we all were, engineers. Most all of my friends are engineers. I'm like the only finance person. So, you did have a group of people who had spent 4 years, 5 years in college getting degrees. We all pursued graduate degrees. So it was an environment of you just, you know, of overachievers. I'll just put it like that.
Right.
It's probably an environment of overachievers.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, you know what? I'm with you though. Like, so you were saying that coming out, you were like on top of it and coming out to build wealth. Like that was your intention, like right out the gate. I would say for me, that wasn't the case. Like I was thinking more, I guess I wasn't thinking that big, right? I'm like, my intention wasn't like, I'm gonna build wealth. It was like, I just want to make sure I don't have to worry about money. Like that's kind of how in my brain I had thought about it. Like I want to have options. I want to be okay. Like I don't want to worry about it. I grew up with a single mom. I saw her work multiple jobs, and I knew the assignment was like get a good job, get the benefits, and and make good money to be comfortable. And so that's what I did. Thankfully I was able to get a government job right out of college and everything like that. But it wasn't like I'm about to build wealth, right? So like I asked you about this if someone about fire, like if you knew about fire early, like you would have been like all over it. I don't know. I don't know if I would have. Like, I think I would have been interested. Maybe, I don't know. It's hard to say because the way I was approaching it, I was making some good decisions, but it wasn't like very intentional. Like, so maybe this is one of the mistakes. It wasn't like very intentional of like, I'm about to build wealth, right? It wasn't like, or like, I'm trying to be a millionaire. It wasn't like very explicit like that. It was just like, I want to be comfortable. I don't want to be worried about money. Like I don't, I want things to be good. I knew like money was required to create the life that I wanted, but it wasn't so much about in the context of wealth building, like that language. I wasn't thinking that at all. So yeah, so actually that was one of I had a few mistakes. My mistakes aren't as heavy as so mine will go quick too, but that was kind of one of the mistakes I had when I was thinking about what to share. It was like intentional planning, like just being more intentional about it, like having the vision, like this is what I'm trying to do and setting out to do that thing. And I guess like on some level I did have that, like, but it wasn't like wealth building level, like wealth building vision. And I think a lot of that was because I just didn't, it just wasn't my purview. I didn't like, it's almost like I didn't know it existed. I wasn't around that world. So like, that's why I said the people you were around, when you guys were feeding that to each other. And I mean, I knew people had real estate and stuff like that, but I just didn't think about it in terms of wealth building. And I actually did buy my first house, like a townhouse, when I was 22. So I mean, I knew about, but that was more about home ownership in a way. Like, like getting a house. It wasn't like, and I did have a thought though. Like, so that actually was a bank-owned property. And so I just happened to stumble upon it when I was moving to Charlotte. And so I got really fortunate with the pricing on it and all that kind of stuff. And I did think like, oh, okay, maybe at some point I'll rent this out. But again, it wasn't like a real, so I guess loosely it was there, but it wasn't like a conscious, very intentional, strategic plan around it. It was just like, oh yeah, I could probably rent this out later and stuff like that. So if I would have had that voice, maybe it would have been like, oh, okay, now I can see how all this could fit together, and it just would like accelerated the path, right? So that's why I got excited when you were saying like, wow, your late 20s, you had all these properties, because like you was like really, that was what you was doing, right? You was building this real estate portfolio, which I would say for me that I guess that could be a mistake, that I wasn't thinking about it in a very intentional, strategic way like that to build wealth.
But that's not so much of a mistake. I think that's like we didn't have that information. Like when she said that, I had like goosebumps. Like I didn't even like you said, Shante, when I thought about real estate, I thought about it from home ownership. When I would hear people say how you build wealth is through real estate, I thought it was just acquiring properties, having land over time, having land to pass to your kids. I didn't think of real estate as an income producing asset. I didn't think of it as a cash flow strategy. I didn't see anybody who had that strategy, or if I did, I didn't know what they were doing. And so it would never have occurred to me at that age if no one had told me. It's not so much a mistake. It's like, gosh, or what I wish somebody had told me sooner, because I would have jumped all over that. If I had known that I could rent free, I would have bought a property so freaking fast. Listen, I would have been the dorm. I say this all the time. Like, if I knew what I knew now, I would have been the dorm. Like I would have bought a 4-family property, rented out the other 3.
I would have, y'all quote that. I would have been the dorm if I would have known.
I would have been the dorm. Like I had no idea that was even a thing until my 30s. Like,
well, just like you said, so I didn't find out about FIRE until, and I think FIRE really wasn't it did become more of a movement probably by the time we were in our 30s. Like, I mean, I think there were some people who might have been doing some of that stuff, but as far as like the FIRE movement, I think that was more by the time we hit our 30s, the early 30s and stuff like that, people were starting to have that conversation more. But I don't think it was as much of a thing. And Betty, you brought up a good point. Like, even like preparing for this live, like coming up with my mistakes, like I just want to share that, like, when I think about, it's like mistakes in quotes, right? Because I don't really even view them as mistakes. Like, some of it was just, I did the best I could at what I knew at the time. It's like, you don't know what you don't know. And so like, I don't even view them as mistakes. I just have a philosophy of that everything builds and nothing is wasted. So like that was just the journey to get here. And so like, I don't really like carry them as mistakes. But speaking to the rental property, so what ended up happening is, what had happened was, I did get that townhouse like to live in, when I was 22. And by the time I was about to get married, we ended up buying another property. This was like 2011 or so, like so the real estate market was still down, still trying to recover from the recession. And really the value of my townhouse had dropped to the point where even if I wanted to, I couldn't sell it. So then it just automatically became a rental property. And so after about 5 years of renting it and having it as, having a tenant in it and everything like that, I decided to sell it. So I would say that one of my mistakes was actually selling it. But at the time I wasn't even thinking about the way that I am now about real estate. And I was like, that could have been an income producing asset. And honestly, by this point, I could have had the thing fully paid off. So like, it would have been like a fully paid off income producing asset, but I sold it. But so every now and then I think about, what if, like, dang, I should have kept that thing, But I don't beat myself up about it, and I don't sit in it too long, because I'm good with the reasons why I sold it at that time. I was good. I had some tenants in there. I had to clean up stuff. So it was just like, I was good. I was ready to move on at that time, and so I feel good about the decision that I made for where I was at that time. It's just now in hindsight, like I said, I kind of think about, and even at that point, this was before my financial coaching journey, which led me on my own personal finance journey, like it leveled things up. I wasn't thinking the same way that I think now. And but I could count that as a mistake, because I could have had that property, right? So that was a mistake. This is the loss of that income producing.
That is, I totally feel that. Jessica has made a very good point in the comments. You guys see her comment. She says, we have to, and I'm putting the emphasis because I figure that's what you got some emphasis on that. We have to make finance a conversation in our communities at an earlier age. But many people just don't know how to get out of living paycheck to paycheck. I totally 100% agree, because that's exactly what I help women do. But I also feel like so much emphasis is placed on, building wealth. Go buy real estate. get your, plan for the future. But some of us, there's some steps before we can even get to that
Yes.
point, right?
Yes.
Some of us are
Yes.
not even, we can't even think beyond the next day, let alone 20 years from now. I think this is also a flaw in some of the corporate wellness or corporate financial wellness programming. There's lack of a focus on the day to day, helping people with their day
Yeah,
to
that
day
foundational money
finances.
management. It's like I can't even
Right.
like fully get to the
I
401k
can't
and
think
Roth
about
IRA.
my
I'm trying to
401k.
It's a brain
Exactly.
block. Like
I
I
can't
can't.
even think about it. I can't even
The
think about like
idea of
next week.
fire.
Right.
So to retire, I
Exactly.
can't even take a sick day. Like I'm trying to figure out how to take a mental health day. I can't think 20 years down the line. That just feels too crazy, too much of an obstacle. And that's how people feel. Because like you said, the biggest problem in our community is even when you're high income earners, they're paycheck to paycheck, because we really still don't have foundational skills on managing our day-to-day spending. And so even when we get these higher paying jobs, we don't understand lifestyle creep. We don't understand how to keep that extra money that we just got and do something meaningful with it. And so we find ourselves back in the paycheck to paycheck cycle after every single raise that we get.
Yeah, there's a big difference between making money and managing money, right? And like really being
Mhm.
able to tap into the potential of what your money can do for you if you learn how to manage it well. And Jessica was saying in the comments, like learning discipline, budgeting, and living within our means of income. Absolutely, it's like that's the key there, is learning how to do that. And that lifestyle creep is very real, and I think that's where a lot of people get caught up. Like more money comes in, you just spend more money because you haven't developed understanding where your money is going, being intentional about your decisions around your money, like learning how to actually manage it, and like really prioritizing what's most important so that you make sure that your money is going to those things, right? It's just like the money will get spent, y'all. There's no shortage of ways to spend that money. Yeah.
Right. And lifestyle creep happens because our vision is very short term. Our vision of making it is creating, this six-figure career. It is buying the big house. It is getting the nice car, but never really thinking about what truly makes me happy. Because I don't know about you guys. In my 20s, I was so excited to have that what was it? Whatever Infinity that I drove. I was like, I could wait to be driving through town in that car, right? But priorities are different in my 40s. You think I care about a car? No, I care about a paid off car. I don't care what it looks like.
I just had that
Right,
conversation with a
right,
friend today. Like I don't get that much return on investment. After a certain price point, it's not doing nothing for. I'm thinking about vacation I
It's
could have
not
went with that car.
it's not
yeah,
doing anything for me. It's not giving anymore in my 40s, right? And so it's like we
yeah,
grew up with what our vision of what it means to have made it, being able to spend on these fancy things, giving them red bottoms and whatever. I don't know what the bags were that we were into, the nice Coach bag or whatever. I don't care about none of that stuff. Like, I like to have it, but I ain't gotta have it. I'd rather have my
yeah,
401k contribution. But it's like those were our vision. That was our vision of making it. But right now, my vision in my 40s is being able to have money that affords me flexibility, being able to have money that affords me options, being able to have
yeah,
money that affords me, to live a life um where I'm not worried about money. And not that, I have 10 million in the bank, but I am not worried about,
living.
trying to living. Exactly, like that's my vision. That's what I'm pursuing now. But I think,
Yeah,
as we were growing up, when you saw someone, our examples of people making it or being financially successful included expensive things, included having things that nobody else maybe had, or in the family or whatever. Especially when you become that one um who makes it out,
yeah.
who makes the salary. I think those are kind of the underpinnings of being not really a victim, but succumbing to lifestyle creep.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Jessica was saying about generational wealth. Like she said, so that the next generation doesn't have to start from scratch like we did is my goal. Yeah. And I think we probably are starting to feel that more with like, and this is another thing when it comes to like thinking about your past decisions or what you might consider a mistake, is like we all started from different places. A lot of us weren't taught about money. We didn't know what we didn't know. And we had to start from scratch. We might have been the first generation to have the high income, first generation to go to college, like I was, or whatever. Like, so we're navigating. We're the one blazing the trail and navigating the path and navigating these new waters. And like, so yeah, there's gonna be some mistakes along the way, and that's okay. And you can learn as you learn and grow and get more education about things. You can make better decisions or different decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I think generational wealth is actually one of those buzzwords that's out there that we're two phases before we even get to that point with a lot of people, right? Really
Yeah,
start you got to prepare to start to create wealth, and then you can create some generational wealth. But there are some steps that we aren't, us who talk about, building those foundational skills, we're being drowned out by all the people who are talking
Mhm.
about, oh, you can use this, you can use real estate, you can use Airbnb, you can use crypto, whatever, to build generational wealth. But there are so many things that go into the
Yeah,
building generational wealth that aren't talked about. It's really talked about as something flashy and something, desirable, that a lot of work goes into, a lot of education goes into, a lot of
yeah,
discipline goes into, but that often gets left off whenever it's being used as this buzzword. I think it's my
I,
personal
yeah.
opinion.
I agree
I
with you
think
with
the
the
other thing
buzzword.
is like generational wealth is the generation is not even on the same page. So it's the families are not having enough conversation. And like you talked about, your one of your biggest goals is not having a vision with your husband. I think a big mistake that we're making in our community is we don't have a vision as a family, where we
Hmm.
Mhm.
are not thinking generations ahead about what we want to do, how we want to strategically do it. And so you might be like, I'm trying to build generational wealth, but the rest of the family's not on board. So then the whole thing falls apart. You've got this vision for your family, but your family, it doesn't have the
Doesn't.
for the
Yeah,
family. I think something that we absolutely have to do more of is having family meetings, talk, opening up to the idea that it's possible. Because, for example, like we know we have this, we see what's possible. We're in this industry. We're a little more open to the idea, but there's so many of our family members whose only version of what wealth looks like is what they see on TV, which is why they aspire to have a new car, new these things, because they don't see, it doesn't feel tangible to them outside of what they see on TV. They really can't wrap their brains around it. And so we've got to create an environment where it feels like this is possible, mom and dad. Let me show you this family. They live right next door who are doing XYZ. And then it becomes like, okay, this is really doable. But I think like in the very beginning, a lot of the people in our families, it just feels like you said, we're paycheck to paycheck. How are we supposed to build wealth when we don't even have enough money left? Now you want us to buy a farm and put, you know what I mean? You
yeah,
want us to do XYZ. We have to do a better job as a community of thinking like a community, both in our inner family and then later on, the bigger scheme of things, like working together cooperatively as well. As other
yeah.
communities, I think they build wealth so well generationally because they have this inner community, but then
Yeah,
they
but it's more
also
communal and like more
have,
community type mentality around it. Well, and I
Right.
think when we think about wealth, like a lot of times we think about monetary and material things and riches, but like just like Jessica was saying in the comments, and I totally agree, is that I think wealth is also the knowledge that you pass on. Like there's the knowledge, the mentality, the mindset around things to build wealth. Because like I can't remember what the stats are, but like for generational wealth, it takes like, it doesn't take many generations to mess it up, y'all. Like so, right? Like you can start building. Is it three? What's it,
It's
three?
it's it's 75% of generational wealth is lost in the second generation.
I'm about to say
And
the
Yeah,
then
very next one.
and then the third is like 90% of it or something like
yeah.
that. But the
Like I
very
knew it was
next
something
one,
high like
because
that. Yeah,
often, like you're saying, we don't pass the lessons that go with
Hmm.
managing and making and replacing. And so here's the thing with generational wealth is two things. It's accumulated wealth. So you're doing your part as a wealth generator, but it's also inherited wealth that is
yeah,
going to build upon. Every generation has an understanding that, hey, I got to not only consume, I got to be a builder and a generator as well. But it's often just talked about it as kind of one part. Let's, you know do these things to build it, but it's accumulated wealth and it's inherited wealth. That's where
yeah.
generational wealth starts building.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, it's built. It's called generational wealth for a reason because it's built over generation and it's meant to last generations, right? If it's properly protected.
Right.
Yeah, every generation has to create, not only consume, but they have to create and build upon what has been established.
Right. To manage what has already been created for you.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
that's a powerful and important piece of it. Guys, before we get off, I want to make sure that um if the audience has a financial mistake that they're currently trying to navigate, while you have three on this call right now, that you're able to share that with us and we can help you think through and navigate, because sometimes you're aware of the financial mistake, but you still don't know how to get out of it. Like, you're not like blind in it,
yeah.
but you're like, but now it's been a year of me trying to navigate this through, and I still don't know how I'm going to get out of this a lot faster. And I think one big mistake that we make is not asking for help, not um, reaching out to people who can help us out. And so while you have us here, don't make the financial mistake of not asking for help with something that you're trying to navigate right now.
Yeah,
Um,
thank you,
also,
Jessica. We appreciate you for joining us live and being engaging in the comments.
yes, we appreciate you so much. Thank you so much for sharing. Also, again, what is your worst financial mistakes and what would you tell your younger self? Because people need to, first of all, know that they're not the only people who made those mistakes. So you can free somebody up in these comments with your financial mistake. But then
Yay.
also, what advice would you give your younger self? Because let me tell you something, I would have a whole weekend getaway with my younger self. Okay. I'm an auntie her. I'm an auntie her. She need her favorite auntie to talk to her.
Well, you just shared today. Like, hopefully, some people will catch this, was watching, or could catch the replay, or look. Hey, y'all share this with somebody who you think might need to hear it. Like, who maybe you have a sense that may be struggling with some things and feel like they may be not sharing something. Share this with them so that they know that they're not alone, and maybe they'll resonate with one of our stories or with some of the things that we've said, and maybe reach out for help, right? Or maybe um, not shame themselves or beat themselves up so much about whatever situation they've gotten into, and know that they can get out, right? They can do something
Forgive
different.
yourself. I'm over here still in forgiveness mode, and I'll probably be forgiving myself for the rest of my life because we are going to make more mistakes as we grow older because each stage of our life is brand new to us. So what
Mhm.
we understand about money in the stage of our life, we understand, but the next stage of our life is going to be the first time we've ever experienced it. There are going to be new things that we're navigating, and we're not going to always get it right. If we are getting it wrong, listen, you should have grace for yourself to get some things wrong, because all we do as money nerds is study money. So and we're still making mistakes, so
Yeah.
please be kind
Oh
to
my gosh,
yourself.
it's crazy.
We're still figuring stuff out too. Yeah. And yeah, realizing that overall mental health issues hurt us financially, we have to have wellness. Yeah, it's called financial wellness for a reason. Like, that's beyond just money, right? It's like holistic wellness, right? Being well, emotional wellness, being in a good place with ourselves, doing that inner work. That's a lot of what Coach B's story was about. In hindsight, being able to see that that's what led to some of that. So yes, yes. So thank
Absolutely, you hit
thank
the
you so
nail on
much
the
for
head.
joining.
Thank
Thank
you,
Thank
you
you,
so much
Jessica,
for
for
joining.
Brandon.
sharing that.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. We'll be back next month, the second Tuesday. No, I keep saying
Second
I say Tuesday
Monday.
every time, y'all. It's the second Monday. Second Monday of the month at
Second
7 p.m.
Mondays. Which I
And
want to be able to tell y'all the date, but
oh, I just was looking at it. Hold on. Second Monday is the 8th. So April 8th, we'll be back. Hopefully it'll be our 4 cents again, and Malika will be able to join us. We'll all be here to
yes,
share our 4 cents on money topics that are meant to inspire, that impact, and hopefully motivate Black women to think differently, feel differently, and do differently with their money. So yes,
yes.
thank
And guys, if you have any topics that you want us to cover, we want to hear from you. We want to talk about things that you want to talk about related to finances, the conversations you wish that people were having, the conversations that you need to have. Let us know, DM any one of us, and we will put it on the topic list
you.
because we want to talk to you.
Yes, yes, yes. All right. Well, thanks for sharing, ladies. I think this was a great conversation to let everybody know that money coaches aren't perfect either. We're figuring it out as we go along, and yet we're still here to help you.
Listen, if we need to have a part 2, I got content for that too. Okay.
But I have an additional one that I ain't share, but like it's not that. It's fine. But all right. Well, you guys, thanks for joining us, and we will see you next month.
All right, bye guys. Thanks for joining.
Bye.